Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
Wait, Geeky, you there?
I am. I'm sorry, I was texting somebody, but go ahead.
Your boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, she's like, I am so invested in this video. Let me just finish texting somebody. We're going to talk about Star Wars. We're going to talk about the...
So do you blame me?
Yeah, right? I don't give a crap. Like, you sent this over this morning. I'm like, oh, God, Disney Star Wars? I don't care. But it's interesting where it's coming from. This is, again, another indicator that the pendulum is swinging. We got Paul Tassi over at Forbes, who spent a lot of time going after YouTubers who covered Disney Star Wars in a negative light, dropping this article that the Skeleton Crew, the Acolyte, and the Disney Star Wars spiral, things aren't going very well. Even if the shows are okay, people aren't watching them because they're over Disney Star Wars. Can we say that? Are we allowed to say that?
Everybody else is.
It's so weird because just a couple days ago, it was the 7th anniversary of the release of The Last Jedi, which I think it's very easy to point to that movie in particular and be like, this is the moment that Star Wars broke. This is the moment that the fandom broke. And they had a couple of bumps here and there, but for the most part, like, everybody was pretty much on board with Disney Star Wars until The Last Jedi and the drama around The Last Jedi happened. And then everybody just kind of started to nope out on different, and you could see the decline, right? And even the toys and stuff, like when The Force Awakens first came out, God, they had like entire aisles of Star Wars again, like it was 1980s at Toys R Us. They had like massive, they had a new Falcon out, and they had these big ass play sets and walkers and TIE fighters and all this stuff. And it was actually really cool to see because I hadn't seen that much Star Wars in decades. And then it just all collapsed. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you have woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to clownfish-com, join the reef. You know the deal. Join the Plus Club. Also, check out our merch. See our fabulous merchandise here that we got. And you can get the same content on clownfishtv.locals.com. So yeah, this is, again, this is coming from Paul Tassi, who did get into it with some bigger Star Wars YouTubers, including Star Wars Theory, who's, I believe, the biggest Star Wars YouTuber out there. The guy's got like 3 million subs. And, he was kind of attacking him. And now he's like, there's a Star Wars spiral.
I know, that's what gets me. That's why I sent it over. Because I was like, yes. And now he's saying pretty much the same thing people like us are saying that he was getting mad about before. But he has to get a couple things in there about the Acolyte in there to make sure, because he liked it.
Well, that's okay.
You're allowed to like it, yes.
So here's the thing. This is what we've always told people. It's the same with like when we were going after Netflix Sheer and all that. You are allowed to like it. What we're telling you is this is why it's not resonating with people. This is why it's irritating when you've got people out there lying about like the original show or whatever. Just like this. There are a hell of a lot of people that do not like Disney Star Wars, even if the Disney Star Wars is objectively good or competent, as we saw with Andor. Like Andor, and I still haven't watched Andor, but a lot of people whose opinions I trust said Andor is actually pretty good. That being said, I keep forgetting it exists, and I have no interest in watching it because I'm so over Disney Star Wars.
Well, that's the thing. I watched the first couple episodes, and I don't know. I think maybe it got better as it went on, but I just got bored and just Star Wars anymore. Like, I used to love it so much, and now I just find myself not even wanting to, except for Ewoks, a couple other things. I really just don't want it anymore because I'm just so over it, especially since I've been called into my names.
Yeah.
It's just like eventually even the big fans get tired of it.
I mean, I'm saying here, like, Star Wars used to spark joy. It used to spark joy, right? Even if I didn't like everything that they put out, especially with like expanded universe, but it wasn't as divisive and toxic and shit that it is now. I mean, literally people are getting doxxed, harassed, threatened, called Nazis.
Oh, because you didn't like a movie or show.
Oh, because you don't like a fucking movie.
I mean, people that like it get called names too, and I personally don't care if someone likes it. As long as you're not being a dick to other people, I don't care either way. I mean, you're allowed to like something, you're allowed to not like something, just don't be a butt about it.
We used to argue about before, like people don't remember. People who are younger don't remember. There was a big discussion in the Star Wars community about Return of the Jedi versus The Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of people up until the prequels came out, they hated Return of the Jedi. Not to the extent
I like Return of the Jedi.
I know a lot of people do. A lot of people like the prequels now too. I actually like the prequels. I think they could have
Well,
been,
in comparison, they look great.
yeah, they could have been like I like the idea behind the prequels. I like the actors in the prequels. I think George needed somebody looking over his shoulder and being like, "Hey, yeah, that's maybe not a good idea. Yeah, that fart joke. Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less Jar Jar. Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, right? Which he had with the original trilogy. He had, you know, well, one, his wife fixed the first movie,
but there were no women in Star Wars until
there are no
now.
women in Star Wars. But you know what I'm saying? So when something does drop that's actually good or competent, like people said that Skeleton Crew is actually pretty good.
I only seen the first 2 episodes. I haven't watched anymore. I haven't had time. But they said it's low. There's low viewership on it, though.
That's it, because the damage has been done. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, at this point, they could totally fix Star Wars. They could go and, like, completely undo everything Kathleen Kennedy has done in Star Wars. And I don't know if people would come back. I really don't know. I think the damage is done.
I think they're just tired. I think they need, and he even admits they need to let it rest. Yeah. And they don't let it rest. So it's funny because he has these different things that he wants to mention as what he thinks that you need to do with Star Wars if you go down. Okay. You're talking about, here's the things that it's in a death spiral.
Yes.
I know, right?
What?
Well, Paul.
What?
Wow. Welcome to the party, Paul.
Nazi.
So here's the issue, according to Paul Tassi.
Okay.
Disney Star Wars has mined the Skywalker era to death. Literally, as Han, Luke, and Leia all died over the course of the last trilogy.
Huge mistake.
I know. To understand, they need to start retelling more stories outside those linked to those characters. The problem is people aren't going to come to these unless they're characters they recognize and love, which comes to number 2. No one watches these shows.
Yeah.
Again, it's no coincidence that Andor, the Acolyte, and Skeleton Crew appear to be the least watched series they've made. Andor and the Skeleton Crew take place right before or after the current era. They don't feature well-known characters, and that's enough to get people to ditch them. The Mandalorian had the benefit of a guy who was almost Boba Fett and a little dude who was like Yoda, but even that show couldn't resist bringing in characters like actual Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and even Luke Skywalker eventually. But people cheered for Luke Skywalker. Just pointing that out. Now, somehow it's become a movie, the only one Disney appears to actually be making. 3, there's 4 points. 3, it does not matter whether the shows are good or not. Yes. Andor is universally recognized as some of the finest Star Wars content ever.
Wow, it's actually like we're speaking the same
language. I know, right? And people keep saying that.
Except I'm not going to call Star Wars Theory, a racist or a Nazi or whatever.
Right.
He's allowed to have his opinion.
And yet that did not make it a viewership hit. Its second season only exists because a deal was made before it aired, which is true.
Yes.
The Acolyte certainly had more mixed reviews. Here we go. But it was no Book of Boba Fett. Well, it depends who you ask. Now, Skeleton Crew is highly scored, pretty non-controversial with fans, and most of whom are really enjoying it, and it's the least watched thing they ever made. People quit because of the Acolyte, because of this shit, dude. Because of Book of Boba Fett.
Well, it's kind of like Star Trek's in the same place now, too. A lot of people would not give Picard season 3 a chance because the damage was done. A lot of people
it started out adding to that damage.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, to be fair.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing. Like, you can't win. It's very hard to win people back. Like, they did it once. They did it once with The Mandalorian.
Well, that's the thing, because The Mandalorian was the first show they put out. So you have people like, okay, we'll give the show a chance.
We'll give the shows a chance. The movies, okay, they were a waste, but we'll give the shows a chance.
And they did good for the first couple seasons. By season 3, they completely, lost the plot. But then you started putting out all these other shows, and then, could have done well. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi could have done well if you made it about, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke and not Leia, which made no sense. Yeah, there's different things you guys keep inserting things into it that you could have done well, and then you drop the ball.
But you say that you say about, because I mean, I actually like the prequels. I think they could have been better, but for the most part, like, I love Revenge of the Sith. It's actually I actually like Revenge. I know this is heresy, but I actually like Revenge of the Sith more than I like Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry. I know.
Well, I guess I have to divorce you now.
I know, right?
You're allowed to like what you like.
But I love Revenge of the Sith. Like, the prequel trilogy was worth it for Revenge of the Sith for me. So that being said, I mean, I was actually quasi excited when they were like, yeah, Ian McGregor and Hayden Christensen are coming back. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe they'll get another chance to do over. Yeah, okay. But then, the little Leia thing. But then if you say, hey, it made no damn sense to have the little Leia adventures, then all of a sudden you hate that actress.
And it's like, no, I like the actress.
She's a cute kid.
But I think that was a bad call, which if you've watched our show in any period of time, you know I think that.
Right.
I'm just saying, you guys, muddied what you had. And the reason people want to go to see they wanted to see the shows with characters that are similar to what they wanted or characters they know is because those characters what kept the franchise popular for decades.
I mean,
it's not hard.
How fucking incompetent, can I say that? How incompetent are you to ruin Boba Fett? Boba Fett, who is... up until recently was probably the most popular Star Wars character. He had this air of mystique. He was just a badass. And yeah, people watched Mandalorian because they're like, this is what Boba Fett should have been. But they ruined him. They ruined Boba Fett. How incompetent are you to ruin Boba Fett?
They did.
But they did. They managed to ruin Boba Fett.
I know. So number 4, far and away the biggest issue is that Disney Star Wars content, Star Wars or otherwise, has an astonishing price tag attached to it. Another universe, the Acolyte, may have survived if it had not been for the ridiculous $180 million. No, it wouldn't have, dude. Sorry, give up on that one. A show that used a lot of practical effects and sets like Andor may have seemed cheaper, but it cost $250 million. There was also to be fair though,
where's the money going?
No. Andor had way more episodes, and they, and I think a lot of the things they had for it were used for season 2. So it was like that. It was $250 million, but I think that it's probably for both seasons because they were greenlit at the same time. And even if it wasn't, they're using a lot of stuff they built the first time for the second kind of thing.
They reuse a lot. One thing I've noticed about Disney Star Wars is they reuse a lot of props from the movies and the TV shows. Because I noticed like a lot of the aliens and stuff that they had in the sequel trilogy, they used them in like Solo and they used them in the shows.
Well, what I also thought was interesting was I know when they're doing like they were doing scenes, they have that technology now where you're on the ship or whatever and the screens move around you. Yeah. So they don't have to put the effects in so much
they don't have
after.
the sets or whatever.
But they have that. I'm sure it's expensive. They have sets, but I'm saying I think it's expensive. Skeleton Crew, which you may not have thought was finally getting the budget in line, which you may have thought was getting the budget in line with a smaller scale story, cost $136 million. It's only like 6 episodes. Is that what it is? 6 or 8? Yeah. I forget. It's not that many. Andor had a lot more episodes, which is probably why it was a lot more expensive. They're simply incapable of not spending way more money than is rational on projects like this. So what's the solution? There's not a really great one, but other than putting all the Star Wars on ice for a while, people get excited about it again, maybe make more movies and less shows. I think what's going on is people are just over it. I don't think, unless you put it to bed, you're going to get people back. There's just no way.
Yeah. And here's I've argued this before, and I'm going to argue this again. I think Disney would have been ahead of the curve had they, after the sequel trilogy, put Star Wars on ice, like Tassie said, and then just went back to the original trilogy and made a shit ton of merch, because then they wouldn't have this sinkhole. I think they would have been further ahead if they had stuck with the original plan and made the Disney lands, the Star Wars lands, the recognizable original trilogy.
Or just make it recognizable areas instead of make your own story, make your own adventure.
People didn't get it. They didn't get it. No. The hotel crashed and burned, which we said was going to happen. Oh, Clownfish, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, the hotel was a fucking disaster. And that was one thing that I'm sitting here like, we're in a pandemic. And, a lot of people are out of work. And so now is a great time, of course, to unveil this ridiculously overpriced luxury hotel and then base it on the least popular era of Star Wars ever. Like, it would have been better off in the prequel era, like a Clone Wars hotel, right? Like, I think more people would have actually gone to that than the sequel era hotel, but it was a one and done. Yeah, I think they would have been better just actually, because if you have the rights, I'm sitting here looking at like Robotech, right? They don't have to make any new Robotech, no. But people have such, I know some, okay, this is going to start, people are going to start getting pissy about the Macross or whatever, but I'm saying there are a lot of people out there who are Robotech fans, and they're perfectly fine with just buying new merchandise of that legacy franchise. They don't have to make new Robotech, right?
No, I think they're remaking things. What happens, these Hollywood studios buy up stuff and then they think they have to, quick, we need a hit. And then what always amuses me is we need a hit, so let's go back to this tried and true property, but we're going to change everything about it. And then the fans get pissed and they're like, why? We don't understand.
Lord of the Rings is another one. You would have been fine, Embracer Group. You would have been fine to just... It would have been just enough to own the Lord of the Rings rights and be able to publish the books and be able to license out merchandise based on the movies or whatever, or whoever's got those, right? The Warner Brothers or whoever, right? Without doing damage to the brand. But now you're damaging the brand with piss poor Amazon shows The anime did not do well. They've got the Gollum movies coming out. Well, who the fuck cares, right?
No.
I'm sure some people do, but even The Hobbit, I would say, damaged the Lord of the Rings brand. You're almost better off being, holding the keys to the candy store, but you're not making you know what I'm saying? You're being very selective in how you merchandise or expand upon the world, because you're better off having a bird in the hand. People love this thing. Let's not ruin this thing. Let's just make more merch and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And then you're not spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, it would have been enough for Disney to own the rights to Star Wars, to have Star Wars in the parks, but not feel like they have to go out and make a bunch of new movies. Because you're still going to make a bunch of money on all the merchandise, all the books, all that. You know what I'm saying? That would have been smarter. But again, greed. Oh, we have the rights to Star Wars, therefore we have to Marvel this shit and make new shows and movies and whatever. And you cannot do that with Star Wars.
No.
It doesn't work.
They've already found that out. And they're definitely spending too much on it, you know, because you look at it and you're like, where'd the money go? Yeah.
Everybody's calling us out. Star Wars Outlaws was a massive failure for Ubisoft. Now, that was a perfect storm of a lot of things. It was a AAA title with a square-jawed female protagonist that was buggy as hell when it was released. It was overpriced, and it was a huge, huge, huge flop for them. But it was also Star Wars, right? Like, nobody gives a shit.
We're just going to slap Star Wars on, people are going to buy it. And days of that are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they even said, this is a Spectator. They said the decline of Star Wars, the franchise, has suffered from Marvelification.
Marvel's suffering from its own Marvelification. Marvel
is suffering, right? But this is what he was citing. It's like, the Skeleton Crew didn't even make the top 10 list. The freaking
exactly a lot of times.
JonBenet Ramsey made, Lioness. I don't even know what that is. What is Lioness? I have no idea. Man on the Inside. What does that mean? Cross, Tulsa King.
I don't watch these, so.
The Later Daters, Day of the Jackal. Here we have films. Our Little Secret, Spellbound, Snow Sister, Hot Frosty. Hot Frosty was number 7. I don't even watch. Like, half this shit, I haven't even heard of it, but
I know.
Still outperforming.
We don't have time to watch TV.
It's still outperforming Skeleton Crew. Because, again, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It doesn't matter what you think. People are over Star Wars. They're done. They're done with it. It's over. It's in a death spiral. And honestly, I agree. I think that the best thing you can do at this point is pause all new Star Wars for the foreseeable future until you can figure out a path forward, or until people get nostalgic for it again. Because right now, there's zero nostalgia. Actually, what they're nostalgic for, I wish I had a Men in Black memory eraser, so I could be like, let's just forget the entire Disney era of Star Wars so I can enjoy Star Wars again. I haven't watched any of the movies since Disney dropped the ball with Last Jedi. Like, I didn't even watch Rise of Skywalker. I have not seen it. I don't care to see it.
Nope.
I don't care. I watched some of The Mandalorian, and then they fucked that up too, because they can't help themselves. So we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.